Hey guys, my name is Kayla and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to do kind of a chill September wrap up, and for September I read a total of 11 books, which for me is pretty good. This month I participated in the Mamma Mia-a-thon, and I also participated in Becca's Bookopoly-a-thon. So for those two readathons, I think I did pretty well. And let's jump into my September wrap up. So the first book that I finished in September was Final Girls by Riley Sager. This is Riley Sager's first novel, but for me it is my second novel that I've read from him. And this is a thriller set with a girl who was the sole survivor in a massacre, and she is what is called a final girl. So she was the only person left alive after the massacre. As she goes along, she meets other final girls, and they kind of embark on a journey trying to figure out what is going on with them and what happened with another final girl. And it left me on my toes. I highly recommend it. It does get a lot of mixed reviews from people. They think it is Riley Sager's worst novel, but from the two that I've read, I enjoyed it a lot, and I cannot pick of the two which one I think. So I ended up giving that book, I believe, 4 stars. So I highly, highly, highly recommend it. The second book I read in September is Heroin by Mindy McGinnis. This book is about a young softball player who gets into a car accident, and she has to start doing physical therapy, and she starts taking OxyContin, and she gets addicted to it. So this story is basically just her trying to deal with her addiction and her relationships with the people around her to overcome her addiction to OxyContin and later other hard drugs. It was very insightful about addiction, and I really think that it showed it in a appropriate way. I personally cannot identify with it, but I think that it is a good representation of having an addiction to medication. The third book that I read in September is Girl Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Bashardouse. I'm just going to start off. I gave this book 1, maybe 2 stars. I actually really did not enjoy it at all. I listened to the audiobook and I was bored a lot of the time, and there were parts of it that were very good and parts of it that I enjoyed, but like as a whole, I did not enjoy it. I heard that it was a Snow White retelling, but while reading it, I felt like I didn't see Snow White at all. And I think I'm very big on, if I didn't like it, I erase it from my memory. So I kind of really don't remember a whole lot. So the fourth book that I read in September is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I believe I gave this 4 stars as well. I enjoyed it. It was very hyped in the booktube community, and if you don't know what it's about, I will let you know. So it is about a young black girl who is a nanny slash babysitter for a rich white family, and something happens one night and she gets called away from her party to come take the little girl to the grocery store just to get her away from the house for a little bit. And while at the grocery store, a woman accuses her of kidnapping the child and that not being a child she is supposed to be with. And so the mom in the family tries to make everything better and ends up backfiring a little bit. So I highly recommend it. There were parts that I didn't understand, and I felt like some of the characters were very annoying. I felt like some of the characters could have done a lot of things differently, but I think because of the story, it made sense that the white family was as annoying as they were. So the 5th book that I read in September is The Silent Patient. I think I gave this 2 stars. I hated it. It was not fun to read. It was not an enjoyable listen. I hated this so much. I thought this was going to be so spooky. I thought it was going to be so scary. I thought I was going to be on my toes the whole time, and I was straight up bored. the entire time. I didn't care about anyone. I didn't want to care about anyone. And the twist at the end caught me 100% off guard, and not even in a good way. Like, I was like shocked, but I was also had to pause the audiobook and go back like 2 minutes because I thought I forgot information. It was not. If you've seen Meg with Books' video where she like a vlog or any of her wrap-ups that she talks about this book, she goes off because it's bullshit. This book is bullshit, and I wanted to love it, and I hated it. The 6th book that I read in September is Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare. I give this book 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is a short story collection in the Shadowhunter world, and these, I kind of can't explain what's going on because will probably be a spoiler for other Cassandra Clare books, but this book follows Simon, who is a Mortal Instruments character, and he is at the Shadowhunter Academy, and while being there, other people tell stories. And you meet other characters, you meet old characters, you meet new characters. It's just, the last story in this bind-up was amazing. I think I cried at the end. So if you have not read this one, but you've read other Cassandra Clare books in the Shadowhunter world, I highly recommend listening to these stories. And yeah. The 6th book that I read was Dear Child by Rami Hausman. I read this through NetGalley as an ARC. This book was originally written in German, and it was then translated to English. And we follow a young woman who is kidnapped, and it takes place 13 years later when, at the very start of the book, she gets hit by a car because she escaped and she's now in the hospital. And you learn that she has 2 children with her captor, and the book kind of just goes from there. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. There was shock. There was awe. I loved the children. I loved the main character. There is a twist towards the beginning that I don't want to say because it will sway your perception of different plot twists that are later to come in the book, but I just know that I was shocked through the entire thing, and I highly, 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 highly recommend this book for you to read. The next book I read was The Clockwork Pro by Catherine Fisher. I also read this as a NetGalley ARC, but this book came out a few years ago in the UK, and it is now getting published here in the US, so I believe that's probably why it was on NetGalley. I read this book in probably 2 hours. I flew through it. It is a middle grade, and I think that's why I do not remember a whole lot, because I read it so fast. But from what I do remember, it is about a young girl who lives in an orphanage, and she goes off to live with her godparents. And when she gets to the manor, there is no one there but 2 or 3 servants, and she does not know why. And prior to her getting to the manor, she is on the train, and a man hands her a package and says, "I have to run somewhere. Don't leave this by itself. It is very important. Please watch it." And she says yes, and he doesn't come back by the time her train gets there, and so she just takes it with her. And inside the package is a Clockwork Crow that she puts together like a puzzle piece, and things ensue. It is very magical. It is very mystical. I think that realistically this is a Christmas read, but I greatly enjoyed it. The next book I read was The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee. This is my second Stacey Lee book that I have read, and it probably might be my favorite of hers. This is about a young Chinese American woman who works in a dress hat making shop, and one day, because she is Chinese, she does get fired, and she goes to work at a manor that she becomes a lady's maid for the daughter of the homeowners, and also secretly lives underneath a newspaper. and she hears from up above that the newspaper is starting to go under, so she takes it upon herself to anonymously send the newspaper letters saying that she will be their new advice columnist. They do not know who she is. They do not know where she lives. They do not know if she is white or anything like that. So it just goes from there, her writing advice in the advice column, and I thought this book was the sweetest thing. I loved all the characters. I tweeted at Stacey Lee and told her that I needed fan art of Nathan, who is the son that works at the newspaper, because he is just the squishiest, like, cutest little boy. And I say little boy, I'm pretty sure he was like 20, so he's not a little boy, he's a man. But he is just a cinnamon roll, and I love him. Next book I read was Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is my third or fourth book written by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I really enjoyed this. This story is about two girls who their father is actually murdered on the flight from JFK to the Dominican Republic, which was actually a true flight that did crash in the 90s, I believe, or early 2000s. And one girl lives in the Dominican Republic and the other girl lives in New York. Throughout the story, they are dealing with the death of their father, but they actually do not know that the other sister exists, and they do not know that they share the same father. They are complete strangers to one another, even though they are half-sisters. This book is written in verse, so if you are not a fan of books written in verse, I would tread lightly here, but I think this book is so lyrical. I think this book flowed very nicely. I was enthralled with every single character. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know their lives more in depth before the plane crash, and I just think this is a good book about family and love and respect for yourself and for your family, and I gave this 5 stars. Okay, the final book that I finished in September, it is the only one that I seem to have a physical copy of. All of the other books were library books, audiobooks, or ebooks, so that is why I inserted a picture and I didn't actually have it. But this final book I do have. So the last book that I read in September was Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. I gave this book 5 stars. I know that could be controversial for some people, but for this being my first Carrie Maniscalco book, I enjoyed it. I think because I love the story of Jack the Ripper, I love the idea of Jack the Ripper historically. That is why I enjoyed this book so much. It is about a girl in Victorian London, and her uncle is a coroner / forensic scientist, and she wants to learn his work, his trade as his apprentice. But because it is Victorian London, that is very frowned upon for a woman to be a forensic scientist. So she has to do everything sneakily. And one day, while she's doing it, the Jack the Ripper killings start. And I liked this book because, for historical context, he is not immediately called Jack the Ripper. He goes through multiple names before he himself, through letters to the police, identifies him as Jack the Ripper. But Audrey Rose is the main character, and her sidekick is Thomas Cresswell, and Thomas also works underneath her uncle. And this book is so good. If you have seen this book anywhere, if you've heard anybody talk about it, if you've been on book Twitter, you know that people think Thomas Cresswell is their bitch, that they are in love with him. I didn't really like him at first, and then I started to like him, and I think as I progress through the other books, I will like him more. My favorite part out of this book, though, is how mean Audrey Rose is to Thomas, because he'll make jokes about, like, kissing her, or she can kiss him on the cheek, or things like that, and she looks at him straight in the face and says, "Don't touch me or I'll kill you," or "Don't touch me or I'll, like, break your neck." Like, she's just so mean to him, and that energy, that vibe is how I'm feeling. I love that he is, like, trying to charm her, and she is like, "Fuck you, bro." But yeah, So that is all the books I read in September. I have never done a wrap-up before, so this was very chill. This was a new thing for us. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have read any of these books, please let me know down in the comments. If you have any recommendations for me based on any of these books, please leave that down below. But do what you need to do. Like, comment, subscribe if you liked this content. Push the notification bell if you want to see more of my face when I post. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.